Ladies and gentlemen, Dreams Unlimited Travel and the DISUnplugged is proud to present Kevin Kidney and Jody Daly.
Thank you so much. I'm Kevin Kidney, and I'm Jody. And welcome. Thank you very much for coming out this morning. It's kind of early. I wasn't sure if everybody would get up or if they'd all still be at the breakfast buffet. But glad you all came. Let's see. Well, we're gonna. I don't know how many of you knew about us before today. I'm not sure. We're kind of more known on the West Coast. Jody and I are both California boys, and so Disneyland is really our park. And maybe you guys own Walt Disney World, I imagine. But we grew up out there, and I know we both really wanted to be Disney artists as kids. We didn't know each other at the time, of course. We met when we were already working at Disney, but it was one of those dreams. So I'm kind of curious, how many of you out there have ever worked for Disney or still work for Disney? Oh, okay, a few. Well, I think it's pretty great. I mean, you're pretty lucky because it's really fun to be a fan. Obviously, all of you who are here are fans, but it's really fun to have a job where you're a fan of the thing that you're doing, and it's just all kind of wraps up real nicely, and it's a good life to have that kind of situation. So we've been very lucky and very fortunate to have that all through our careers. And Jody and I have worked for Disney we worked as art directors for about a little over 20 years, about 22 years. And 6 years ago, we left Disney and started our own company out in Anaheim. We're just near Disneyland, actually. And about 90% of all the work that we do is still for Disney. So we're still pretty much Disney artists, even though we started our own company. So go ahead and start the video up there. There's our business card. I started out actually at Disney as a Jungle Cruise skipper, which was a dream job. It was just the best job in the world. A few years ago. Right after college, I went right into the art department at Disneyland, which was the best job I've ever had. It was so much fun. And during that time, I was a designer on this parade for Disneyland's 35th anniversary, the Mardi Gras parade, designing all the balloons for it. I was one of the original designers for Fantasmic at Disneyland, creating all the giant puppets, the dragon and the crocodile and Ursula. And I thought you might enjoy this rare little piece of film. This is something that I actually filmed over a weekend, 16mm film, very old-fashioned, no computers involved. But this was a model that we built for the dragon in Fantasmic. And you know, if you've seen the show, the dragon is a giant puppet, about 40 feet tall, and we wanted to at least give it a test run and see how the animation would go. So this is basically just putting the dragon through her paces. See all the different, the range of motion where she's breathing fire and going through her ranting and raving and all of that. This is just a really simple little thing. This is nothing high tech, let me tell you. This is a wooden armature with some foam rubber like you'd find in a mattress that we made the skin out of, and the head is styrofoam. So that was the side view. I had to film the whole thing again, front view, and there was only one of me and only one camera, so I had to do the whole thing again. But to keep myself sane, I gave the dragon a little snack. It's fun. I love stop motion animation. If I had another life to live, I would be an animator in stop motion. It's very, very fun. But actually, Fantasmic celebrated its 20th anniversary this year, actually about a month ago. And they showed this film on the water screens prior to Fantasmic starting for the anniversary. And that was pretty exciting to see some behind the scenes actually shown. So during this time, a new guy started at Disney, who I had never met before, this fellow named Jody Daly. And I didn't know too much about him, except that he was this amazing painter. Here's some of the paintings that he was doing before we started working together. This was for a Pocahontas stage show at Videopolis. But together we were part of the team that worked on the Lion King parade, the Hercules parade, This was, here's a model of parade float that Jody designed and I built the model for. But the first, I'd say, official Kevin and Jody collaboration was in the mid-90s. The Disneyland Hotel was going into Christmas, and we did a holiday overlay for one of the stores. And we created, oh gosh, a couple hundred plywood cutouts of Disney characters that had to go all over this store. And what was really fun about it is they were all in this sort of 1930s classic style. And we had such a ball working in style, trying to mimic a classic style, that sort of became the thing that we love to do the most. These are some paintings that Jody did, which I know you're going to find really charming. These are just great little things he just sort of whips out every once in a while. But obviously we love little golden books, and we love classic Disney animation, children's books. But it's a style that if you look at some of the stuff we've done, like Soundsational, you'll recognize that. So a couple years after that, we left Disneyland and moved up to Walt Disney Imagineering to consumer products. And these are some of the pieces of merchandise and collectibles that Jody and I did. That's the Mr. Toad that's now at the Haunted Mansion out in the graveyard, believe it or not. And there's a tea set that Jody designed that is very Art Nouveau. So you can see we were kind of at that point becoming chameleons of style. And no consumer artist can get away without designing thousands and thousands of pins. We had to do a lot of them. But it wasn't until Disneyland turned 50 and we pitched this idea to consumer products that we could do an entire run of collectibles based on Disneyland, which was really our first love, our first Disney love is Disneyland. So here's some of our collectibles, and they're all replicas, very intense, lots of detail. We worked with Bob Gurr, and any of the surviving artists who worked on Disneyland, we kind of pulled them in. Mark Twain was our crowning achievement, had a lot of details, but I thought you might be interested in hearing a little bit about how we go about doing that. A couple years ago, we decided to do Walt Disney's personal car. This is a little car that Bob Gurr had designed for Walt. This is Bob's original drawing that he kept in a filing cabinet and actually pulled it out for us. And not everything was drafted. You'd think everything was, there must be roles of drafting and Imagineering. It's not true. A lot of Disneyland was built without draftings, and or they just sort of based it off of it and just kind of winged it. There were 4 Walt's cars built. 2 of them came to Walt Disney World. 2 of them stayed at Disneyland, and the 2 that are at Disneyland are still there. So we got to crawl all over the top of the car and crawl underneath the bottom of the car. We took pictures of things like the battery charger thing here that we actually did put onto our little collectible. Just trying to get all the little details. And Bob was a great help in that. So there's the final piece. Bob picked the color. We said, which color? There were 4 different colored, and he liked the burgundy best. So we thought, let's do Bob's favorite. Another collectible we did around the same time was the Jungle Cruise boat. This was Harper Goff's first design for Jungle Cruise. A little different from the boat that was actually built, which were the little striped awning boats. These are the more rusty, we call them the rust bucket boats, that look a little more Indiana Jones-ish. Harper had seen the movie African Queen, and he loved the way the boat was kind of aged and had pieces of bamboo tied to it and bananas hanging off of it and all kinds of great little details that gave it a lot of character. So we looked through his drawings. This is one of Harper's drawings. And there's our first prototype. I feel like I'm on a boat looking at these pictures. I can feel the rocking. And there's our final piece. I think we did pretty good. We got little chains on there and all the bamboo screens, and it's really fun to make these things come to life because those drawings had never actually been built as in reality. So to see them in 3 dimensions is super fun. So this little poor rotting and falling apart train that was out on the banks that you could see from the Mark Twain, that was actually engine number 1 from a train ride called Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland. that predated the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad back at Disneyland. And it was the only train that existed from that ride. Unfortunately, it was falling apart. We thought it would be cool to take that little train and make a replica of it as it was when it was brand new. Make it all shiny and clean and kind of make it live again. So there were a lot of photographs. We were able to get all the pinstriping and the letter style, the typefaces, and you know, we're pretty obsessive. So all the little connector chains and the wheel that the driver uses to kind of start and stop the train, all those things made it onto our little collectible. Boiler, that was the real one, and now here's our little version. You can see we copied every gauge. We were obsessive. So there's the prototype. And then Jody will paint up a final piece, and that gets photographed, and there's our final painted prototype. So, as I said, for a long time we thought that the Mark Twain was our crowning achievement because it was the most complicated thing we'd ever built up to date. But there was another thing that we had pitched to Disney for Disneyland's 50th, and it didn't get chosen. So we pitched it again for the 55th. We wanted to do the Captain Hook's pirate ship, also known as the Chicken of the Sea restaurant, which was as much a Fantasyland icon as Sleeping Beauty's castle. But again, this one was really a challenge. The draftings that we were able to get were only partially correct. The guys who had built the boat in those days and months leading up to Disneyland's opening had kind of taken it upon themselves to just make up a lot of stuff because they needed to get it done on time. So some of the windows and some of the angles and some of the frou-frou around the top of the deck was all different from the draftings, and we just had to really look at photographs to get all the details correct to what was actually put in the park. Ask any mermaid you happen to see. So there's the little lantern on the back, and here is our final piece. So I thought now would be a good time to show you a little bit about how we go about making merchandise. Because I'm sure a lot of you buy merchandise and you see the made in China on the bottom, and you probably don't think too much about how it's made. This is one of our more popular pieces we did a few years ago. This was a lamp and a set of tiki gods from the Enchanted Tiki Room. And as you can imagine, they are sculpted out of clay. There's actually water-based clay in a bucket. But Jody and I had a really rare opportunity to fly to China. We went to Shenzhen, and I'm saying that wrong, and got to sculpt with the sculptors. And this gentleman that you're seeing here in the picture, besides me, is a man named Bo Chai. Bo Chai had a studio in Shenzhen, kind of out in the countryside. He kept his studio very cold because he was always working with clay and he didn't want the clay to dry out. But the thing that's amazing about Bo Chai is I guarantee that you own something in your house sculpted by Bo Chai. He is a true Disney legend. He has made Disney merchandise for the theme parks and for the Disney stores for decades. And just thousands and thousands of pieces. And it was such an honor to meet him and get to tour his studio, get to work side by side with him and his team. So the sad thing is, just about a month ago, Bo Chai passed away. We just found that out, and we were both really sad about that. He was an amazing guy, and he really does deserve a window on one of the Emporium shops for sure, because I know he's put a lot of stuff on those shelves. So after these sculptures are sculpted and approved, we make a mold. Then the first piece is cast up, and this is our auctioneer for Pirates of the Caribbean. You can see it was all white there and whiteware. Jody will do the first paint master. So this is in the process of being painted. And this is, at this point, is usually the best paint job these figurines will ever have because they're done to the way we want them all to be done. And then we just sort of cross our fingers and hope that when they do the mass production process that they will come out looking similar. here's our studio, and you can see we were painting a lot of these figurines all at one time. There's Big Al. And this was a figure we did of the Barker bird for the Tiki Room. Disneyland's Tiki Room had a little Barker bird with Wally Bogue doing the voice. And he's one of our favorites. We're huge Tiki Room fans, so we had to do this. So as satisfying and as fun as it is to make merchandise that is mass-produced, because everyone has a chance at getting one, the thing that we miss as artists is that hands-on control to have over each and every piece. So we decided we really wanted to do some one-of-a-kinds. And we thought we might do the Hatbox Ghost from the Haunted Mansion, who we had only known really as a character on that record album that we grew up with. I'm sure a lot of you did too. So a few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, we did this Halloween pin set for the Disney stores. Which had a lot of fun little characters in it, the characters dressed up in Halloween costumes. And just for fun, we snuck in the Hatbox Ghost. And his head was a separate pin. It could actually come off and you could wear it separately. Then for the 50th anniversary, we stepped it up one and we did a big fig of the Hatbox Ghost using photographs and sculpting him. But again, this was mass produced, so it was a cool piece, but we really wanted to build him. We wanted to see him in person. So for D23's first expo out in California a few years ago, we thought for the auction we would create the Hatbox Ghost as a life-size figure. So we got the mold of the head that still existed. So that's the real head of the real Hatbox Ghost. But we had to create everything else from scratch. His entire body, hands, shoes, his costume, everything had to be sewn. We used a lot of plastics and fabrics. And it was pretty unnerving having this character hanging around our studio. But obviously not everyone in our household was fazed by it. Some people you can't impress anybody. So what's kind of neat is right before the auction, we took the Hatbox Ghost up to Disneyland for a special event that DISUnplugged.com was hosting, and we gave them a little sneak preview. And we had this idea of getting the Hatbox Ghost into the Haunted Mansion for a midnight ride that they were planning. We thought we'd actually get some help from Imagineering and put him into the attic scene. So we filmed this little movie to show what he might look like. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The very next day, he had to be over at the convention center, so the timing just didn't work out. But here's a shot from the auction. He sold for about $10,000 to some very lucky and very strange family. I can only imagine what they did with him. But we did have fun with him while we had him. We didn't miss any photo ops, let me tell you. We played around with the Hatbox Ghost quite a bit. So about a year after this, we got an email from a rather well-known Hollywood director who was a huge fan of the Haunted Mansion, and he wanted a prototype for a project he was working on. So we made another Hatbox Ghost for him, very different from the one of a kind that we did for D23. This one was based on Yale Gracie's more concept one that you see those pictures with Yale, but it's much more gruesome, a lot more detail, even more scary. And then last year we got to do a little itty bitty Hatbox Ghost in a bell jar. This was for a Haunted Mansion event at Walt Disney World, and we did the Colin Campbell version from the record album. And another favorite Walt Disney World character is the Barker bird from Pirates of the Caribbean. You guys all know this character, the yellow parrot. We made a one-of-a-kind figure of him for last year's D23 auction. Had a wooden, hand-turned wooden peg leg and a little eye patch. And anyway, these are really fun projects to work on. We really have a good time with it. So a couple years ago, we moved our studio to Anaheim. And these are some rare shots inside of our studio. It's not open to the public, but we thought you might enjoy seeing where we work. We have quite a lot of space. Old two-story building built in the 20s, and we have lots of room to paint and sculpt. We've got a wood shop where we can do our model making, and all of that type of thing. I'm a paper sculptor. I don't know if some of you know that. I do a lot of paper sculpture for television commercials and print ads and things. So I especially liked having a clean area in the studio where I could cut paper and not get sawdust and paint all over everything like we were kind of getting at our other studio. But for Disneyland's 55th, Jody and I had this idea of doing a paper sculpture to commemorate the anniversary for Disneyland. And this was a piece that we both worked on. It took us about 3 months to make. It was pretty extensive. It's a panorama, 5 feet long, of all kinds of details and icons representing early Disneyland. Lots of architectural stuff and little fun things. Here's the drawing that we started out with. We just sketch little pen and ink sketches of all kinds of little details. Some of these things made it into the piece, but every one of these little details was based on real details at Disneyland that were there during the early days. It's a pretty painstaking process. You gotta be very careful where the glue drips. I don't know if you all remember the Clock of the World at Tomorrowland. These are some of our favorite things. We made sure to put that in there. Things like the atomic symbol that was on the Hall of Chemistry. And that arm, that hand you see up there, was actually a ceiling detail in the Hall of Chemistry that represented the creative hand of man in science, which I thought was kind of cool. So very obscure little details, but we put them all in there. This, one of the attraction posters, one of our favorites. We kind of alluded to it here. There's Captain Nemo's window from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And over in Frontierland, Jody and I both, we've had conversations about this for years. One of our favorite things growing up was the burning cabin, the settler's cabin out on Tom Sawyer's Island that burned for about 4 decades nonstop. So of course we had to put that in, but what's funny is in our final piece, Disneyland Legal asked us to take the flames off because they thought it made Disneyland look unsafe. So, okay. Anyway, we did keep the little paper flames just in case. From that piece of art, we took all of our little icons and we created an entire assortment of merchandise. We did some vintage cocktail glasses using pieces of art from that mural. We also took them and sort of jumbled them and made a repeating textile pattern that we could make other things out of, like shirts. So another thing that we wanted to do that we thought was fun, you really have to rack your brain to come up with fresh ideas. And when Disneyland opened, Walt imagined Disneyland not only to be the home of his characters, but also the people that worked there. They weren't just employees, they were part of the cast. So they were dressed accordingly to whatever area that they worked in, obviously. So looking back through some of the old costume photos, there's some outlandish stuff. I love this little headdress on this lady. This has to be the saddest, most embarrassing costume I've ever seen. This poor guy, who's probably a college kid, had to go to work dressed as this for his job as a balloon salesman in Fantasyland. But, we love all these things. This is great stuff. And there's Wally Bogue from the Golden Horseshoe Review. We just thought, let's just take all these guys and treat them as if they were characters too, and salute them as little figurines. Julie Ream was a tour guide at Disneyland and became the first Disneyland ambassador. So she became the model for our little tour guide figurine. It was kind of strange without paint on, but we wanted them to be real stylized and really, really fun. So Jody did a little first paint job on it, and there she is, with riding crop and knee socks and all. So for the Jungle Cruise, now this is kind of interesting. Going through about 10 years worth of early Disneyland Jungle Cruise, we noticed that they could not settle on a costume for the Jungle Cruise skippers. They changed constantly. It seemed like every year or sometimes several times during the summer. You have different hats, different clothes. We love this shirt. This is a pretty cool shirt, and we discovered that this was actually merchandised to the guests as the Disneyland Boatsman Sport Shirt as worn by the Disneyland Jungle Cruise skippers. So we thought, that's amazing. Well, we got to put them in that shirt. And then you'll notice too that the guys didn't wear shoes, they wore sandals, which would never fly today in our safety conscious world. But we thought sandals, that really kind of gives them a nice look. So our early Jungle Cruise skipper. And our favorite of all, the spaceman, the Tomorrowland spaceman, this poor lonely guy who stood out in Tomorrowland representing the people of the future until a few years later, Disneyland gave him a friend. Space Girl. Spaceman? Space Girl. And you know, the thing that we love about them is not only were they like, you know, these kind of people from the year 1988, but they were also, you know, these sort of fashion people. Her little rocket jets, and she's got little silver space pumps on and everything. I mean, they were adorable, and look, they adore each other. Poor guests who can't even get a word in. They're just ignored. Anyway. Oh, we love Spaceman. So here's our final piece. He actually ended up looking like this. And rest assured, we are at work on Space Girl. So I hope that we'll get to get Space Girl out there soon. So one of the, I guess, challenges of being a designer of theme park merchandise is that everything seems to have already been done before. You know, just go on eBay and look under Disneyland merchandise, and you know, everything from bags and hats, glasses, and marbles. I mean, there's everything, and some of the stuff is pretty outlandish and odd and bizarre and amazing. It's incredible. The leg pin, the can pendants, the leg pin. Some of these things, like cigarette lighters and pocket knives, I don't think we're going to see any of those again, but it's still amazing stuff. The shrunken head. Well, we decided, looking at all this stuff, that you know, some of the things that were created as souvenirs were actually not really intended to be souvenirs. Things that you might take home, or might not even take home. You might just throw them away, like a popcorn box. We love the early popcorn box of Disneyland, and it was pretty famous. You know, Walt was seen on TV eating popcorn out of it, and loved that hat. But luckily, there were a few people who didn't throw their popcorn boxes away. We were able to get our hands on one and scan it, recreate it as a ceramic popcorn replica. This way, you can put it in the dishwasher and never throw it away. Just reusable. It's great art. It's got to live on. So now it does. So we did the early paper cups, which were a huge success for Disneyland, so we did the same for Walt Disney World. And of course, the shopping bags. Paper shopping bags rarely make it, you know, through time in one piece. They get pretty tattered and worn out. But the graphics on this particular bag was one of our favorites, so we recreated it as a textile print and made shirts out of it. And the teacups, one last little thing here, the teacups, we love the teacups. It seemed like such an obvious choice to create a set of drinkware based on the teacup ride. So looking back at photographs from the 50s, early 50s, seeing the patterns that were painted on there, the Bruce Bushman design patterns. We started doing every cup. We haven't gotten our way through every one of them yet. We still have a couple more to go, but we've almost worked our way through the entire ride. Love the teacups. So, okay, well, anyway, we've come full circle. In the last few years, we've come back to theme park design and Imagineering. Jody was the designer of a parade down at California Adventure called the Pixar Play Parade. These are some of his original paintings for the parade that I don't know that these have ever been published before. I think some pieces, snippets of, but maybe not the whole piece. But they show a lot of, you know, the stuff we love, just playful, whimsical. It's fun to take these films and translate them into things that you know, can actually be built. And now we're back to Soundsational. Soundsational, a couple of things that weren't in the video. This was such a fun, this was the day we first fired up the Mary Poppins float. But all these little things like spinning flags and these characters that you never get to see, that are really rare. There's so many wonderful characters in Disney films, and a lot of them don't really get seen very often outside of their films. This is the best ride in Disneyland, and only 2 people get to ride it. Mary Poppins' bicycle, and we did Bert's bicycle too, as their carousel horses. But this was a very, very, I'd say, personal project for us. We got to pack a lot of our favorite Disney things into it. And in fact, when the parade opened a year ago on May 27th, it just happened to be my birthday. And the team let me be in the parade as a chimney sweep, which I never got to do that before, but that was really fun. For us, that was like our Disney, kind of like our Disney dream kind of thing. It happens for us too. Very, very exciting, fun project. So that's our video.